Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to another edition of Minds and Beyond webinar. I can see a lot of familiar names here, and I can also see some new people. You're all welcome. My name is Omotola Ajayi, and I'm the co-founder of Minds and Beyond. It's a mental health hub where we discuss everyday challenge and also we try to destigmatize mental health problems. I've got my lovely co-founder here today. You're looking radiant and beautiful, Adebusola, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Omotala. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us again for this month's edition of the Minds and Beyond webinar. We have an interesting topic to discuss today, something that is very topical that affects almost every one of us. I can believe that that's the reason why we've joined today. My name is Busola Adegbola. I'm a specialty registrar in psychiatry in the UK and the co-founder of Minds and Beyond. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Right. And although this was unsolicited, just some in-house news. So Adebusola and I had our graduation from the Royal College of Psychiatrists last week. And so I believe that even if we're having any atom of imposter syndrome conducting this webinar, I believe we're very well qualified, seeing that we've been there, done that. Or do you have other thoughts, Bisola?
Oh, well, I believe that you're right. And of course, we will definitely go in depth into our personal experience of imposter syndrome. And we all know that it's really a journey. There is nothing that you can do to completely overcome imposter syndrome. And at every phase of your life, even though we graduated and we are members of the Royal College, there is something else that you're looking forward to. There is another obstacle to overcome. There is something else where you're competing to be at the center of the table, to have a seat at the table. So while that is laudable, imposter syndrome will always be around, really.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what you just said now made me remember going for competitions in primary school. I remember I always felt like, oh, all these other people are definitely smarter than me. There's no way I would be better than them. And then they will brag about what they know. You would feel as though, my God, there is no way I can win this competition. And then you go into the competition and you win, and you're like, okay, so I'm not that bad. So at every single stage, if that story is relatable, can I see your hands up? Just a show of hands, because we really want not just a conversation between myself and Busola. We want something that we can all relate with. We want to create an environment where we are able to express ourselves as much as possible or as safely as possible. And most importantly, the topic is overcoming imposter syndrome. So it's not about just talking about imposter syndrome on and on and on. It's all about the strategies that we can put in place. I'm sure that you will learn a lot from us, and we are also very more than happy to learn from each person on this call tonight. I can see a lot of people relating with the example that I have given, and I can bet it's about to be juicy tonight.
Absolutely. So I guess we've already started sharing stories and we can really just get into the meat of the conversation without any further ado. Can somebody just put in the chat box, anybody really, what they understand by imposter syndrome? What does that mean to you? I'm gonna check the chat now to see what we are saying. Anybody?
Brilliant. There's someone who has written in the chat box. Timitunde says, the feeling of being not enough or being a fraud. That is succinct. People are ready for us tonight. I love it. Right. Any other takers? I'm sure that when we saw this poster webinar advertised somewhere, there were thoughts running through our minds, and there's a particular reason why we're here. So someone has said, the feeling of constantly doubting your abilities or self-worth. Timitunde says she's super pumped. Yes. We are as well. Welcome and thank you. Thank you for joining. Joshua says the feeling that you do not deserve something that you have achieved.
Oh my goodness, it keeps coming in. Amazing. Nafisat, imposter syndrome is the feeling of not being able to actualize our dreams. Amazing, amazing definition from everybody. And, the gross definition of imposter syndrome really covers what we've all talked about. So we definitely know that we're in the right place to say things, and we are talking to you know.
Yeah.
We understand what's
Mm-hmm.
going on and what imposter syndrome really is. Some people may call it imposterism, other people could call it imposter phenomenon. And you have all defined it rightly. It really is a phenomenon. Dr. Dinosh says that persistent feeling that you're not as competent as others perceive you to be. You live with a secret fear of being found out or exposed as a fraud, despite evidence of your skill and accomplishment. Perfect. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, 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 very encompassing. You have all rightly defined imposter syndrome. It's really that phenomenon where you're able to internalize your own skills, your achievements, your experiences, your promotions, your achievements, and you attribute it to either luck, chance, connection with people, any other thing apart from your skills and your abilities. That's really what imposter syndrome really is. And I like to say it that is that crappy friend or that crappy spouse that is in your head that keeps saying very derogatory things about you, saying negative things about you. So even though we say it's a syndrome, it's not a clinical diagnosis. It's really what we would describe as a phenomenon or as an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about that crappy spouse, there's a book by Brené Brown. I don't know if she has any fans here. I find her writing rather interesting. She calls them gremlins. So even when you've earned things, you've earned your status, whatever it is, you still doubt yourself. You still feel as though, if these people really knew who I was, especially, there's this popular adage that says that a prophet is not recognized or is not honored in his own town. So because maybe other people see you as, oh, this is just my sister or this is just my friend, it doesn't also mean that you cannot wear a lot of caps. You're also a competent professional wherever you are, as long as you have earned it. But I know we've already given lots of introductions and we've given we got a perfect definition. Sorry, we've got perfect definitions rather, because everyone's definition was so spot on. I want to put Adibusola on the spotlight tonight, and I would like her to share just one story. I'm sure we all have stories to share. For us to be on this call tonight, we must have experienced imposter syndrome in one way or the other. Or at one point, it might not have lasted long, but it would have at least happened, or maybe even happened to somebody that we know, if that's the safer way to put it. So Adebusola, would you be willing to share with us tonight an instance where you felt this overwhelming sense of not being enough or being a fraud?
Yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome for me personally really shows up in three major ways, really. One, when I have to do something on my own, when I have big shoes to fill, and that big shoe is very sudden, I have to fill it very sudden with minimal notice, or when I'm competing for a seat at the table, really. The most recent one that comes to mind, if you're following me on LinkedIn, I shared one about when I failed an exam, but we've moved beyond that now. And the most recent one that really comes to mind was when my consultant just emailed me that he wouldn't be able to attend a meeting and I have to attend on his behalf. I was like, say what? So what kind of meeting is this? And da 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 da. And he just sent me the agenda, and I was really on my own. It was very, very tricky. I felt like, especially when you're in a new role, you're in a new team, you're in a new system, and I felt like I don't know anything about what these people are talking about. I don't know anything about this team. I don't know anything about services to offer in this place. What exactly am I going to be able to offer in this meeting? And it was really fantastic that I had that experience, because, you know, you're just going in and having this momentous occasion where you're just thrown into the deep. And of course, I doubted myself. I felt like, you know, these people, you're supposed to be one of the top members of the team. You're supposed to be the person in the team where they come to for answers to questions, not just simple questions, the tough questions. They're supposed to give you a call. And then you are going to be attending a meeting where you have no clarity of what you're going to be able to do there. And I was very, very scared. I was like, okay, so these people are going to know that this higher training is, what's the difference between you and the core training now, or what's going on here? But it turned out well. It turned out excellently well. And I'm sure that that's all of our experiences with imposter syndrome, because you find yourself just doing it afraid. And it turns out well after that.
Hmm. Sounds very boss-like. Like it sounds like you killed it. Well done. And I can totally relate with that story of just being told to do something spontaneously and you seriously doubt yourself, like, oh my God, this is definitely not a good idea. But yes, thank you for sharing. Thank you. We'll still come to some of the things that you were able to do to be able to show up despite the short notice and also deliver excellently, because I think that sometimes it could be so strong, imposter syndrome could be so strong that some people don't end up delivering as they should. Some people stutter through it. Some people, even if they have delivered, they are not able to analyze the situation correctly or accurately. So they still feel as though they didn't do well. Or maybe because they made a minor mistake, then they then dwell on that particular thing and just catastrophize the whole situation. I think that also happens ever so often.
And that's
Right.
also okay, really. It doesn't really matter what the outcome of
Mhm.
that particular event really is, and because what imposter syndrome really does is deny you of opportunities, deny
Mhm.
you of being able to say yes, deny you of the opportunity to leave your comfort zone, deny you to the opportunity to experience life beyond what you're currently having in your hand. So whatever the outcome really is, that's also fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Again, it's that gremlin, it's that thief or the crappy spouse in your head telling you the opposite of exactly who you are. Right. Did you want me to share a story or not?
Yeah, you can share a story of, you know, and I know that you have numerous stories, but you can share one with us about
Right.
your experience of imposter syndrome.
Okay. Right. I think mine was more of starting moving roles. Yes, I would say more of moving roles. So it was from the point where I had to attend an interview. That was my first international interview for a job. And from the stories that I had heard that it was the most difficult thing ever. You had to apply to, some people applied to hundreds and hundreds of jobs. And it wasn't because they were not good. It was just that those posts were very competitive. And of course, I prepared for this interview. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you would see the short, I wrote a short story on it. I prepared for the interview. I asked my seniors or people that had gone ahead of me, went all out. And I went to the interview. Honestly, I knew that I had impressed the examiners or the interviewers because we got along. We even shared a laugh. I knew it went well. But for some strange reason, this gremlins in my head just told me that I wasn't going to get it. I mean, I was positive. You know, when you're positive, like I would get it. But at the same time, you're like, oh, why would it be you? Why you, Omotola? There are so many people that must have applied for this job. So why would it be you? To cut the long story short, I received an email very few days after the interview saying I had been successful and they had given me the job. And I was like, "Ah, these people sure? Are they sure they did not miss something? Is it possible that my very first interview in an international one, I'm getting the job? And what if I even start this job and I don't even know anything about it? What would happen?" There were lots of thoughts running through my mind, and it had to take a lot of self-realization, of cleansing my mind to realize that yes, girl, you worked hard for this. you have been trained for this, and whatever training is left, you will get it on the job. So that was one instance. And I would just share another flip side of it was when I then started this job, I would attend what we call there's like a meeting of all professionals, nurses, doctors, and for many of us on this call, you know that myself and Adebusola, we are psychiatrists. We are currently higher trainees in the UK. So we have this big team where you talk about patients, you discuss management and all that. And trust me, for the first 3 months, I was mute. And if you know me personally, I'm not one to keep quiet. I'm more of the troublemaker in the group. I was mute because I felt as though I had nothing to add. I had nothing to offer. Even when they called my name, I would freeze and just stare at them like, don't you know I'm new? I have nothing to offer. So for a long time, I couldn't do much until about 6 months after I started finding my foot. I started learning that my voice was important and I needed to really step up and just occupy that space and take charge, really. So yeah, it's been positives and negatives when it comes to imposter syndrome for me. And it's still something that I experience. Sometimes I feel like I've finally overcome this, and then other times it comes back, creeping, knocking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to your story where you have to be a part of a competition, or you got a new job, or you got a promotion, you're part of a new team. I'm sure a lot of people can really relate to your experience of where you feel like, are you guys sure? Are you sure it's me? Are you sure? Or there are times where you'd be like, they were just being polite. They were just smiling because, the British politeness, they're just saying, you did really well because, they have to say it as part of, empathy and, things that they need to say. So even when they say all of that, you don't tend to believe it. Even when they give you good feedback, you don't tend to believe it. You'd be like, I know that's when they are behind, when I'm not there. I can only imagine what they're saying about me. So that's how imposter syndrome really, really shows up. And of course, I'm sure that a lot of people can relate with your experience with MDT. I certainly also had the same experience at MDT. And it's not uncommon. It happens in a lot of minority groups. You see these people that don't know as much as you do or don't have as much experience, but what they have is confidence. And they show up confidence. And even when they don't have answers at those meetings, they have questions. So either way, they're able to show up with confidence and really make appropriate contributions wherever they find themselves. But as a minority group, as somebody who is changing or new team, new job, you tend to struggle a little bit. What is most important is to recognize why this is the case and when is imposter syndrome really a problem that needs to be worked on actively.
Yeah, I guess the recognition is one of the main things, because sometimes we give excuses like they'll probably not understand me. My accent is different. I think that's very common, especially amongst people that have migrated from their home countries to new countries. And then I think it starts from when you say your name. What can we call you Omo? Or we didn't hear you. Or when they type your name, they write something else. And you're just wondering, what am I doing here? Is this really the right place? They can't even pronounce my name. How do I communicate with these people? So it starts from things like that. And then you say something, or maybe you mispronounce something. There was a time I was speaking to one of my colleagues and I said basic. And he was like, huh? I was like, yeah, that's basic. It was like, oh, basic, you mean? Imagine, imagine if I was, of course, that person, I knew the person, but imagine if that was in an open space, you would feel so embarrassed. And trust me, English is not our native language. We only learned it. We have our own native languages. And we just feel so embarrassed by little things. And obviously, sometimes these people do it intentionally, but other times they're just being very sincere, nothing nothing attached, but because of our own insecurities, because of the things that we already have in mind, we easily just spiral down and think, oh, I'm not good enough. Whatever I want to say, nobody will understand. But we won't dwell too much on the stories. If anybody has any story they are very keen to share, we are very open. We understand that it's a sensitive topic and we're not saying everyone must share by force, but if there was something you wanted to share, we are very open to talk about it and tackle it. But Busola, I'm going to put you on the spotlight again. So why is it that high achieving people like you, like Chidima, like Joshua, Adewale, Rose, Omolola, Damilola, Romoke, why is it that we often experience imposter syndrome? What is it about us that makes us experience imposter syndrome? If I didn't call your name, it's because I cannot see your name. You are also important. Thank you.
I mean, that's the paradox of imposter syndrome, isn't it? Imposter syndrome doesn't affect basic people. There's nothing to be bothered about.
Basic.
There's nothing to be bothered about if, if you're just below average. Imposter syndrome really affects high achievers. That's the simple truth. That's the kind of the paradox about it. There's so many things that could cause this, and hopefully we can cover a little bit of it, starting from childhood experiences. If you joined last month, I shared my story of childhood trauma. And it was very traumatic because it was school-based, really. And if you experience trauma from school, answering questions, then you can imagine the level of imposter syndrome I've had to deal with over the years from that traumatic experience. So childhood trauma goes a long way in affecting a lot of people in terms of how you see yourself, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and how you rate yourself, really. It could also be domestic violence, emotional abuse, constant criticism, your parenting style that you're exposed to. If you are exposed to an authoritarian parenting style where you just have to get things done and nobody shows you the way, and when you don't do it, there's very high consequences of not getting those things done. You do not get any psychological affection. Your needs were met. I mean, you were fed, you lived under a roof, and you were clothed, but that's pretty much it. Because that's psychological and emotional experiences that would now help one as one develops through life is really absent. The other thing is really family dynamics. If you have overachieving people in your family, and this is not to say that they are putting pressure on you. It could really be that they are not putting any form of pressure on you. They understand that everybody is different and everybody's path in life is different, but you can still sense it, and you still have that pressure of having to measure up, not being the disappointment, the black sheep of the family, so to say. So you have that experience. It could really just be that, you are the star of the family. You are the one that will make the family proud. You're the one that everybody is investing into. So you have this type of imposter syndrome where you're just a perfectionist or you're overworking yourself just so that you do not disappoint. You have the fear of failure because you're not just failing yourself, you're failing everyone else around you. That's how you see yourself. Another thing really could be that you're the sibling of the star. So you don't necessarily have to be the star. You may be the sibling of the star. And, you have that star of the family that you're looking up to. And people make comparison, whether overtly or covertly. It just happens one way or the other. And they tend to make comparison between you and the star of the family, and all of these things just, it's in your brain. It's something that you reflect over. And some of these things are what people have defined as little trauma. Don't forget that really trauma is not only the bad things that happen to you, it can also be the good things that didn't happen to you. So you get to internalize all of these things over the years. It could also be, you find yourself in a very critical career. For some of us that trained in Nigeria, we know how medical training is. And it can be a highly critical career, trust me. You're presenting in the presence of patients and their relatives, and they're blasting you. They are telling you that there's sawdust in your brain. They are telling you that what happened to you. So you can really come from a very critical career. And and it's not just people in the medical field, artists. People really have to put themselves out there, where you have to present, you have to be somebody, you have to put yourself out there, and you get a lot of critique. So I'm going to stop here and let Omotola jump in on the other causes of imposter syndrome.
Yes. Right. So I just wanted to I highlight the comparison part, because in the society that we are in today, even if you're minding your business, drinking water, you have people constantly feeding you with unnecessary information. And I'm one of them. I agree. You can just open your LinkedIn and someone has started this position, someone is now a founder, someone has whatever number of followers, someone posted something about something they've achieved. It's just a lot of information, and it can really be overwhelming. And then sometimes you sit down, analyze your life, and you can just conclude that I don't think I'm making sense. Can you imagine my junior of 3 years ago or 4 years ago is achieving so and so and so? So I don't think I'm doing much. So that comparison is a big, big, big thing. And I think that sometimes people's personalities, some people are just type A personalities. They just want to get it done. They just want the best of the best. Nothing is ever enough. And as I'm saying this, he's sounding like someone very like that I know, but I won't really mention the person's name. But the person is wearing a wine jumper. And they just want to get things done. They just want to keep achieving, and then there is really no end to pursuing these things. But at the end of the day, just pausing, reminding ourselves that it's not really about the number of achievements, it's how much purpose we are fulfilling, how many lives we are impacting. But I don't want to go too much into it, because I feel like you've done really good justice in terms of some of the causes. Yes. So just coning it down now, I know that initially, when I believe it's just until very recently that imposter syndrome has been something that we've heard about. If you've heard about imposter syndrome before, say 10 years ago, can you raise up your hand? Just use the emoji of raising. So before 10 years ago, you heard of imposter syndrome, that term. Of course, we've been experiencing it, but that term, yeah, I can see Omolola shaking her head. So it's not really something that was brought to our forefront. It was not something that was in our, we just knew it was something happening. It was a phenomenon, but it wasn't something that we're really conscious of. But some ladies apparently in 1978 decided to research this phenomenon that we're talking about today. And they started off with high achieving women that came from certain backgrounds where they were either high achievers or where lots of things were expected from them. And they realized that when it comes to gender, women seem to be more susceptible. I'm not saying that men do not experience imposter syndrome, but women just tend to be more susceptible. So I just want us to have a conversation about this, Priscilla. Why is it that women tend to experience imposter syndrome more than men? And I'm even going to try to look at this call and see the demographics. I'm not saying everyone on this call is experiencing imposter syndrome, but I'm just saying I definitely see more women on this call than men, just from scrolling through. So why is that happening?
Well, it's definitely commoner in women than in men. And obviously, the two American psychologists that did the research in 1978 did it on women. And, as they begin to understand some of the components, the fear of failure, the self-doubt, the anxiety, the perfectionism, of course, we know that it also happens in men as well. Men don't tend to have all of these. They don't tend to voice how they feel the way women to voice it. And like you said, that it's still fairly recent. 1978 is how many years? It's no long at all. It's still fairly recent. So I'm sure that, and when it comes to embracing mental health, women tend to do that a lot more than men. And also, starting from socialization and gender expectations. Girls, as young girls, they are described as good when, they're able to do things, they're helpful at home, they're able to do minor things, but they're not really recognized for being smart or being intelligent. And so women tend to think that, their success in life is really based on their effort. And that's why there's always need to do more and more and more. If you see an average family, and I don't have a number to justify it, but if you know, in an average family, the woman has a salary job, she has a side hustle, she has a
Mhm.
business. It's the woman, the man is just doing a salary job. That's in an average family. And there's that need to want to do more and more and more to really be able to define yourself or define your accomplishment. There's also, workplace bias and misrepresentation. Women are constantly finding themselves in workplaces that is dominated by men, and where you have to speak up and be able to be recognized, to even get the same pay, to have the same salary scale as a man can be quite tricky. So there's this need to want to speak up and to want to feel that you have to do more, or to doubt yourself, really. There's also the stereotype about women. When you do so well, they feel like, the other aspect of your life must definitely be failing, because you cannot, there's nothing like a balanced woman. There's nothing like balance anywhere. So there is that need to want to strive a balance as you're juggling these many balls. And also the stereotype of the world looking at you, where if you shine too much, there is a name for it. If you don't, there is a name for it. If you stand up for yourself as a woman, you're being aggressive, you're being defensive. But
Mhm.
as a man, you're courageous, you're bold. So many of these things feed into the stereotypes, really, and why I believe that women tend to experience this more than men.
Yes. And yes, I completely agree with that. And whilst we are not trying to say that it's just focused on women, we know that everybody can experience imposter syndrome. And I just feel that, again, one of the points that you said was that it robs of opportunities. And sometimes you walk into a space, you meet somebody that clearly, this person, if you were to match certificate for certificate or competence for competence, this person is no match of yours. But the person tends to take the corner office, in quotes, if there was anything like that, or hypothetical corner office. The person is the brave one. They might not really have much substance. That's one thing I've come to realize. They might not really have that content, but they are taking the space. They are confident. They're exuding that confidence, and you keep wondering, what am I getting wrong here? What's happening? So I think I want us to start talking about some of the things that we've done successfully, some of the things that we've been able to do to navigate this imposter syndrome. Just like we said, it's something that has come to stay, and it's something that we have to keep fighting day in, day out. It's not like, oh, I'm now done with imposter syndrome, then I can move on to the next. You'll be shocked, because it's just about levels. You might be comfortable in your current position or wherever you find yourself, but there's just one more level waiting to doubt yourself. You will be shocked that even the richest people, most influential people in the world would still experience imposter syndrome. So that brings us to some of the things that what can we do, really? Because I know that if we're on this call, we're here for answers. Or is anybody here just to learn about imposter syndrome? I don't think so. We are here for answers. So what are the things that we can do? We are also open to listening to the audience if you have any practical tips to share. But myself and Busola will just bounce off each other's ideas and talk about some of the things that have worked for us personally and some of the things that work for people generally as well. And I see you all in the comment section. Thank you so much for engaging. I'm reading the stories and would still address them. Thank you.
Yeah, I think So amazing that Nafisa shared that. I had a similar experience in school where a colleague made fun of me in the presence of younger colleagues that has stayed with me for years. And it does tend to stick, and it can really be even hurtful when somebody says, oh, that's in the past, or you should get over it, or but we are not talking about trauma today. So
Bless
I
you.
will send you the link for the trauma webinar, Nafisa, so that you can listen to that again. So let's talk about, some of the things that are quite helpful. The first thing is really recognizing it. I mean, without awareness, there is really nothing anybody can do. Being able to name it. And I've listened to a lot of stories where people give their imposter syndrome names. They give the imposter a name, and you give him one name, and then you have, because that's your inner critic, really. And you need to have your inner cheerleader that will stand up for you and be able to counter whatever your inner critic is saying. So there's kind of like a name for the inner critic, and then you have another name for the inner cheerleader. The team I'm currently in, we have one person in the group that this person doesn't exist, but everything that is wrong in the team is the person's fault. You just say that, oh, it must have been Lucy. Lucy did that. I knew it was Lucy. There's no Lucy in the team. But it's just really a very beautiful workplace culture where you're not working from self-blame, and you're able to really investigate before blaming anybody. So really being able to recognize awareness is the first step towards any change. Without awareness, there cannot be any change. So that self-awareness is very important. And I would say that's the first place to start from. Omatola, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree, because if you're not able to name something, then it's difficult to address, it's difficult to find a solution. It's even difficult to have a conversation about it with yourself or with other people. So yeah, surely awareness is key, but we definitely have to move from that phase to strategies to be able to contain it or to manage it. And the number one strategy that I will be talking about would be reframing your mind. It's funny how I usually tell when I see my clients in the clinic, I usually use this strategy a lot, because you can use it in whatever facets. Once you have any form of negative thinking, it's something that is very practical and you can do. And I usually come out with a disclaimer that this might sound like aspire to inspire, very motivational, but it does work. It works 100%, because this brain that we have can be tricked. I want you to repeat it to yourself. My brain can be tricked. It can be tricked to believe whatever you want it to believe. So when those gremlins, when those inner critics are saying you need to reframe. So reframing your mind is, yes, you're having a particular thought, like I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud. To I earned this. I worked hard for this position, and I might still be learning on the job, but I deserve to be where I am. As far as you didn't get the job via nepotism or favoritism, you're sure that you worked hard for this thing. And trust me, other people are as equally qualified, or maybe not as qualified as you are. And even if they had an added advantage, there is room to grow. So you need to reframe your mind and tell yourself, I am qualified. I mean, even when you're faced with the most unlikely situation, you see when you go on LinkedIn, you see people putting this small poster. Hi, all, I've qualified for Chevening scholarship. I've qualified for Commonwealth. I've matched, or whatever piques your fancy. And you wonder that these people, do they have two heads? No, they don't have two heads, but it's something that there's no one on this call that cannot qualify for any of those scholarships. And that is the truth. If you really, really want to, you can work towards it. But that's by the way. So reframing one's mind is, you have those negative thoughts shouting at you, coming at you. They are very intense, but telling yourself that, yes, I hear you, I recognize you, yes, you're very familiar, but that's not me. I am qualified for this job. Even if it means saying those things as you step into your office space, if that's where you feel the imposter syndrome, or a few minutes before your meeting, whatever meeting it is that causes you anxiety and makes you feel as though you're a fraud, just keep saying those words. I belong to this table. This table is mine to occupy. This table is mine to dominate, however you want to put it. So it's all about saying those things over and over again. It's not a one-off thing. It's all about consistency. If you've been long on our webinars, you know that we preach consistency over anything else. So consistently reframing our minds is one truth that I'll preach all the time.
And of course, while reframing may sound like aspire to perspire, one of the things that helps me conceptualize reframing is to look back on my past wins and be able to say that I was able to do this, I was able to do this. And I don't know how many of us are faith-based here, but if we remember the story of David facing the Goliath, and he says that the God that saved me from the lion would also deliver Goliath into my hands. So it's something, it's tool that has been for several years, and that's really the way to look at reframing. So it's not just that you're just saying positive things or you're just throwing things into thin air. When you remember, you didn't get here by accident. You have gone through a lot of things to be able to be where you are today. And when you recall that, it makes reframing very easy, and you don't feel like you're being disingenuous while doing it.
Yeah. And talking about documenting your achievements, I'm a big fan of writing. It's called my gratitude journal. I totally ignore the negatives in my day and just write positive things that have happened. And that's like having a curriculum vitae for positives for your achievements. It's not something that goes on your proper CV, but it's something that you're able to look back on, reflect on it, and you're like, go, oh, guy, you did this. You must really be a star. And it's not for the days where you feel happy, where you feel energized. It's for those days where those gremlins come in and tell you or tell you to speak less or think less of yourself. So one of the things that writing your achievement does is that obviously it gives you that positive reframing. It helps you to think positively. But one of the other strategies that I would say really, really works is after recognizing, realizing, writing down, being positive, is speaking to people. So sometimes in a situation, you might not even see a positive. But so like you could have attended that meeting and felt like, oh no, this was horrible. This is the worst thing I've ever done. But if we seek feedback from people, and now I'm not talking about seeking feedback from sycophants or people that would not be genuine, people that you look up to, people that you've had previous conversations with. If you seek feedback, solid feedback, you could even have maybe 3 questions from them. Just say, can you tell me about see this, this, and this? Sometimes after our webinars, Bisola and I meet and we talk about it. We don't lie to ourselves. We don't just say, oh, you did well. And say, oh, these are things we can improve on. These are the things that we've done well. So seeking that active feedback from people that we look up to, from mentors, or it could even be someone on your team or someone in school, whatever phase of life you're in. And when you see that person, you're like, okay, I have this presentation. Could you listen to it? Maybe you record yourself and you get them to listen to it and give you positive, not positive, critical feedback. So it could be the positives, the not so good, how to improve. Not someone that would feed into the imposter syndrome, not someone that would downplay on your successes, but someone that you can trust and you can always meet, and they can always tell you what to do and what not to, or what to remove. So I think just that interaction with people and getting that feedback and documenting it is very important. Did you
Absolutely.
have any other thing to add, Busola?
Absolutely, Omotola. I mean, discussing with people starting from your peers, your mentors can give you perspective and give you strong feedback. It can even normalize some of your experiences. What you feel is just happening to you alone. You'll find that, everybody has been there. Everybody has gone through this, and this is how how they're able to push through. If you're in a new team or you're in a new setting where you don't know who to trust yet, you don't know what is going to happen to you, because some people have, they've regretted reaching out to people for support. I would recommend that, you discuss with your peers first. They may not necessarily be working in that organization. They may be working in a different organization, but you are doing something similar. So you can have a conversation. So you already have a preliminary conversation of how it goes with your peers or other people that you trust from other from other organizations, and then that gives you some level of confidence to go and receive feedback. And I would also say that, as much as possible, when in a new team, don't start by asking feedback via email, because for some people it's being used as an email trail, and then the conversation just goes on that way. You want to start by seeking verbal feedback, and then from there you can move to other forms of feedback, because the truth of the matter is that these experiences can feed into imposter syndrome, because you're trying to apply some of these strategies, and it doesn't come out as positive as you expect it to be, and that just feed into the imposter syndrome, and it just gets worse and worse from there. So there's a place of when, where, who, and just the wisdom to be able to delineate how you seek for support.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are real life nuggets. Maybe, I don't know if she's talking from experience, but verbal is always better, because sometimes you never know who is looking out for your flaws. So we also need to be alert. I've got a chat here in the chat box that says that a friend of mine once advised I record myself and send to someone to listen. My imposter syndrome starts from within. I can't even record myself before I present. I have tried several times. Is there any advice you could give on that? Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. Again, putting a name to it is the first step. Although I would change mine to the, because we're not taking it as our own. So for me, I would say that I shared an example of attending the meetings. We call them, for the, just know, I just say it's MDT. Don't bother about the full name. It's an MDT meeting. It's one of the most important meetings that we would have as medical professionals. And I'm sure that in whatever profession you have, it could maybe be a board meeting or whatever name it is. And I realized that some people just spoke very fluently. They had all the answers during MDT. They knew about, before you call a patient's name, they already knew all about their history, or at least a summary of their history. And for the longest time, I didn't know that they had a strategy. So their strategy was rehearsals. They would look through the notes over and over again. They would familiarize themselves with the notes. So I don't know if that would apply to you, the person asking this question, but I believe that sometimes when you know something, a subject matter inside out, if you know it, you know it. So no matter how jittery you are, there is no way you would say, oh, I blanked out, or I got so scared. Somehow you just deliver. So what I would advocate for would be preparation. Prepare as much as you can, not to a perfect state, but such that it becomes, it's from your fingertips. So when you have less flaws in your presentation, it's better. But I'm being careful with this point, because one of the features of imposter syndrome is perfectionism, and we're trying to just strike a balance between all of these things. But when it comes to presentations or speaking in public or talking about a subject matter, I believe preparation you typically would help. Busola, did you have any other strategies?
Yeah, Nafisa, I would say that if you have anybody that you're very comfortable with speaking freely with, whoever that person is in your circle, your friend, your spouse, whoever that person may be, you just have somebody that, you speak with freely. Just schedule a time, and ring the person on the phone. You don't need to record yourself to even start with, and just have a normal conversation about that subject matter. Once you do that, you see that you're able to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, or what that presentation looks like. And obviously, you're not doing this for that person to give you feedback. The person may not be in your field. The person may not have relevant feedback to even give you. You're just starting to initiate the conversation. And most of the time, we give ourselves the best feedback because people want to be nice, and they just tell you one or two things that are not so good. You have to figure it out yourself, and then you can listen to yourself over and over again. And because you've initiated that conversation, it then becomes easier to record yourself if you do need to still record yourself. But what I find very easy. What I find to be most effective in getting over imposter syndrome when it comes to speaking is to really have an accountability partner, whether you have an accountability partner with your friend or you belong to a mastermind, where you have to get it done and there's no room for excuse. You can't come here and give a story of why you didn't do it or why it didn't happen. You just need to do it. So it helps you to appreciate the imperfectionism, the beauty of taking action when things are not perfect. So, and the more you take action, the better you become, and you're able to appreciate your skills from all of your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to be writing on the back of that because sometimes we also, I think it might be due to our background. We feel that little errors would spoil our broth. You have a presentation, you've said something, you made little errors, or somebody pointed out something that was wrong, and instantly we just catastrophize the whole situation and say that everything was bad. So letting go of this, I need to be perfect. I think that's one big thing, that if there was anything that we're taking away from today's webinar, that would be one thing I will be taking away, would be that I don't have to be perfect. I'm still learning. The truth is, for as long as we live, we'll continue to learn, we'll continue to unlearn, and we'll continue to relearn, even things that we thought we knew before. Different evidences will come out. So again, I would say just do it afraid. It sounds impossible, but with all the strategies that we've shared, do it afraid. There are so many opportunities that sometimes I think I also shared one time about how my boss at work just spontaneously asked me to lead on something. And again, because I had been in several situations where I had been asked to spontaneously lead, Bisola spoke about circles or accountability partners. I've had meetings upon meetings where I'll just be spontaneously called to do something. So that consistent practice had prepared me for that moment, and I was able to show up. Because sometimes we don't know what other people are doing in the background. We just think that, oh, these people have just showed up, they've just come, they're just perfect, they were born that way. Maybe 0.0001% of people were born that way, but other people had to put in the effort. So it's that background work that we must have done. And I know that it will eventually add up. We can make mistakes, we can fall, but that's why we're humans. And we need to be kind to ourselves. We need to really be kind to ourselves. We cannot, we're not God, honestly. And we can make errors, and it's going to be okay, like absolutely okay. I wish I could hold each person's hand and say it's going to be all right, but you need to try first. Yeah.
Absolutely. And coming from that is also where we'll see that even though we know that we are not perfect, there are also some good things about our life, and we don't appreciate all of those things. We also don't take praise well. We don't take compliment well. We try to be modest. Oh, what do you do, Nafisa? I'm just a medical practitioner. When you're a neurosurgeon, you just try to cower and try to be modest. So, but it also feeds into that imposter syndrome. And so learn to celebrate all your wins, no matter how little. Recognize yourself and have the confidence to be able to stand proudly, to stand boldly. Recognize your own wins. And when we talk about perfectionism, what standard are you judging yourself by? What are you comparing yourself with? Really, are you comparing yourself? And this could also be at work, because there are a lot of workplaces where the culture is very toxic. The feedback structure is horrible, and it's just out of the place. And you feel like, why are these people? Why are some people doing so well and some people are not doing so well? You don't know what they're doing behind the scene, and that feeds into that imposter syndrome, because it just rid you of your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth on a daily basis. And there is something that you can do about that as well. So appreciate all of your positive attributes and keep working on the negatives. Really keep practicing, and know that everything. Imposter syndrome cannot go away totally, except if you are going to be basic again. Basic. So, except if you don't want to do great things, but every time you need to move from your comfort zone, every time there is a greater calling, you would have some feeling of anxiety, some feeling of self-doubt, some
Mm.
feeling of failure. But the courage of acting, even when things are not perfect, is what will pull you through. And the just have that courage to act. There are so many unfulfilled dreams. There are so many half projects. There are so many things that you plan to do. And I want to encourage anybody on this call today. You don't have a mentor, you don't have a peer group, you don't have an accountability partner. That's what I want you to take away from today's call. You need one in your life.
Yes. And I'm proud to have one as well, actually, on this call. Well, I have two on this call. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Adebusola. And that would be all about what we're going to discuss today. So remember, you need to recognize it, put a name to it. Remember that you need to reframe your mind, whatever negative thought you have, give it a positive thought and keep talking about the positive. You need to revisit your achievements always and refrain from being a perfectionist as much as possible. And of course, always discuss with your peers. I've put in a feedback form in the comment section. Please and please, we are very open to feedback in Minds and Beyond, and it helps us to make every webinar better and better. I've seen people stay on. If you have anything to say at all, please, with a show of hands, we are open to having one or two people contribute, and we are really hopeful that you have learned practical steps to be able to overcome imposter syndrome. I have learned a lot myself, researching on this topic, talking about it, reflecting on things that have happened, right? I'll just make a few announcements and then take the comments. So our next webinar would be on the 6th of November. It's a Thursday, and the topic would be functional depression. Trust me, that is going to be a hot topic. We have a guest speaker. She's an expert, in fact, an expert of the experts. And it's going to be a wonderful session. Mark that date on your calendar. You would see the flyers around. Do well to register and share the links with people. What we're doing here is free because we feel that it's best we give back to people from where we can keep all of this knowledge, but it doesn't help anyone. And that's why we try to share, we try to have these webinars, interact with people, and just see how to, in our own little way, in quotes, make people feel better. And I have a question for everyone. Who knows what today is? Sorry, what tomorrow is rather. Not the date, but the significance of tomorrow. Anyone? Fastest fingers. Nobody. Okay, so tomorrow is World Mental Health Day, and Busala and I were overly enthusiastic about mental health and anything pertaining to mental health. The theme is mental health in humanitarian emergencies, and if you haven't followed us on our socials, we'll be talking about things relating to mental health, building self-confidence, and just optimizing and achieving the very best person that you're meant to be. I've seen a hand up, Damilola and Nafisa. So 1 minute each so that we do not take too much time. Yes, thank you. Yes, I see you celebrating in the chat box. I'll drop our email addresses. Please fill in the feedback form. So Dami, you have the floor. Damilola. Okay, Damilola, are you able to speak? Okay, whilst we wait for Damilola, Nafisa, you can speak, please.
Hi everyone. Hi Omotola. Hi Adebusola. Thank you
Hello.
so much for today's webinar. I've learned so much and I hope I can put them into practice. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. And I'll be
Oh,
at the next webinar. It's my first time today and I really enjoyed it.
oh,
So
we're so
thank you
glad.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for the feedback and thank you for engaging. Thank you. Damilola, are you able to speak?
I believe she said it was a mistake.
Oh, okay, okay, that's fine then. So we'll
Okay,
be wrapping up now. But yeah,
Temitunde Ogunleye is
Temitunde. Okay, Temitunde, please.
Everyone.
Hi, Temi.
Good evening. So this is my first time here, and thank you for the insights. Thank you for you didn't just break down or you didn't just create an awareness on imposter syndrome, but you also give practical tools that I can go away with. One is the perfectionist syndrome itself, which I think I've suffered from. I am I feel liberated, that's the word, and ready to just take on these tools and implement and just see a better version of myself. Thank you for your time.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for the feedback. We are so blessed to have you.
Thank you, Timmy. Timmy Tunde. Timmy Tunde is my childhood friend, and I feel so honored that she's here. I love you, babe.
Mm,
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Damilare.
All right, good evening, everyone, and
Yeah.
it's a privilege being here. This is also my first time. I was fighting it to speak, but remembering what I think one of the two of you said, that one of the things is you find it difficult to even speak when you feel this particular syndrome. And I was like, okay, fine, let me break it right from this call. So
Oh, amazing.
That is good. That is a practical way to start, and that is absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you have any feedback, we're really open to it. Please fill the feedback form. We'll be ending the recording now. This was truly liberating, I must say. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Adebusola, for being an excellent host and guest. Bye. See you later, guys. See you next month.